Vamos a ver qué hay adentro del Alcatraz.
This is actually a movie prop. We've had over 20 movies filmed on the island. You've heard of some of The Enforcer. This was a movie called Murder in the First. The producers brought this truck out by barge and then filmed it going up and down the island, all over the island. At the end of the Park Service, you can keep the truck. Nobody ever does that for me. This truck has a very boring life. It goes down to the dock, we wash it, we bring it back up here and park it. But the best part of that story, after they finished filming, they edited out all the scenes of the truck.
Ahora resulta que hasta el nombre no es Alcatraz, sino que Alcatraz.
When you come visit, tell people, look up and out. Don't look down. You've seen concrete before. It looks like concrete everywhere. During whale migration season, I've seen whales, but we frequently see harbor porpoises, sea lions, and see a storage room. They put people in it, gave them a bucket for sanitation. When the Army decided to start using this as a real jail, they built real jail buildings. This was called lower prison used to be. Now this was better than a storage room. They had another one called upper prison because the Army has imagination. So you see at the top of the island. This is during that construction, and it's interesting because it points out one thing. This is the original lighthouse from 1854. It's too small. You can't have a small lighthouse. You have to have a tall lighthouse. So actually the first thing they built was the current lighthouse that you see as you're coming in on the boat. That dates from 1909. It still works today. The Coast Guard comes out and checks it regularly. Over and made this the prison for the most dangerous, the most disruptive, and the most infamous prisoners in the federal prison system. Infamous meaning everybody knew who you were. Back then, you were famous. Al Capone, even today, everybody knows the name Al Capone. Machine Gun Kelly, not the singer. Alvin Creepy Karpis. He was creepy for a lot of reasons, but one reason was he had his fingertips shaved off so there were no fingerprints. That's creepy. People like that. There were people here who had tried to escape from other prisons 16 times. There were prisoners who were trying to kill other guards and other prisoners. Basically, if you break the rules, you go to prison. If you break the rules in prison, you go to Alcatraz. Because it was 3 times more expensive than any other prison in the U.S. Why? Everything comes by boat. We have no water on the island. The Army tried to find water. They drilled down 200 feet. This is a desert island. So water comes by boat. Food, clothing, bullets, bricks. You know, anything you need has to come by boat. They figured it was cheaper to build a new prison in Marion, Illinois than try to repair this prison. So they did that, closed this prison, moved everybody out. There was only a caretaker, his wife, and youngest son still living on the island. Fun fact, he still had the newspaper delivered every day. He was friends with a radio traffic helicopter pilot, and the pilot would fly over and drop a newspaper before he went and did his traffic reports. That's called Friends in High Places. In 1969, after this had been closed for 6 years, a group of Native Americans calling themselves occupied the island for 19 months. They were protesting the island. We also had several thousand people come over from the mainland because this had been a forbidden island. Now there was no one to stop you. There were no police on the island, so people would come over here and do drugs and cause vandalism. And hey, here's a piece of vandalism right in front of us. July 1st, 1970, during the Native occupation, we had 4. This was the social hall. This is where the guards and their families would relax after work. If you look at the top of the island, you can see the chimney and 22-room mansion up there. There used to be a lighthouse keeper's house next to the lighthouse that would occupy 2 families. And there was another building up there that was a medical office. Those were all torn down because of the fire. These all started on the same night. The government immediately blamed the occupiers. The occupiers said, we were living here, why would we do that? They blamed people coming from the mainland. We had no police presence on the island, nobody to investigate, so we'll never know what really caused it. But I will say 4 fires in one night might be a little bit suspicious. And their families would relax after work. It had a 2-lane bowling alley. It had a dance floor. They had dances Saturday night. They had ping pong, pool table, a soda fountain. They showed movies here, only for the guards and the guards' families. The prisoners never got into this building. Ferry that ran 12 times a day between here and San Francisco. They'd go to San Francisco and walk 2 blocks to school. When they came back at night, they had to have a little dog tag on their wrist because for some reason every child in San Francisco wanted to go to the Forbidden Island. The kids who grew up here said it was kind of nice. It was like living in a very small town, 1.25 miles away from San Francisco. Nobody locked their doors because everybody knew where the bad people were. You could pretty much count on the police officers maintaining order. Okay, let's figure out how we're going to do this. He needs to make a huge military salvage shop. Then it was an electric shop in the penitentiary. Today it's where the Garden Conservancy holds all the gardening supplies. So all the plants you see on the island are maintained by a group of volunteers and paid professionals. They're out here regularly chopping and slashing and burning, whatever. I have seen 2 guests show up here in striped pajamas that look like a prison outfit. It's very funny. When this was an army prison, the army did not consider the prisoners to get out of their cells in the day. They had to wander the island. They would only open the cells again when the usual army discipline. They would march up and down the hill. Here's a big rock, make little rocks. But they also taught them things. We had a schoolhouse. When this became criminals in America, there was no attempt at. They didn't need a schoolhouse, it became living quarters for guards. They didn't need this library, there was a library in the cell house, so they took the books out and that became a shooting range for the guards. Although it's a little weird, the targets inside are aiming at the residents. I think they'd go the other way, but I didn't design it. This building in front of you is the top of the building you saw at the dock, Building 64. The top 3 floors were added as apartments for the guards in 1900. We also had 3 large apartments on the flat parade ground, which were used as residences for the guards and their families. After the native occupation ended, the government tore those buildings down. So out of the parade ground, we have no one living on the island today. We have guards overnight. It came here as a building about this big in 1924. You will see clumps of sticks. You do not want them to escape. So the Bureau of Prisons built special train cars to transport prisoners. They had steel bars on the windows. They had a gun cage at each end of the car where a guard could stand with a pistol. And they had locks on the seats. So they would lock the prisoners down to the seats. They were worried about prisoners being hijacked out of the train. Somebody like Al Capone, for instance, was a billionaire today. He had hundreds of gangs in Chicago.
Entonces las familias de los que cuidaban aquí el Alcatraz, de los encargados oficiales, vivían aquí. Tuvieron que cerrarla, dice que porque se les hacía muy caro mantenerla. Entonces los prisioneros estaban en esta área de arriba. mientras que los demás vivían aquí abajo. ¿Sí ven? Que a veces cuando los prisioneros se portaban bien, los dejaban salir de allá para trabajar y contribuir y ayudar, y así se distraían cuando se comportaban bien. Tenían escuela para los que no sabían leer ni escribir. Eso es lo que dicen. Para creerles es otra cosa.
So it's literally the case that Al Capone did not touch ground between Atlanta Federal Prison and the dock at Alcatraz. Now, I'd be a little nervous if I was on a train, walked on, off the train, up this same road to the same shower that we're going. They did not get an audio tour. They were given a new cell, officers, and they say, in an electronically controlled jail today, the ratio is 1 to 300. So 1 to 3 is insane. You really have a lot of people. Even with all that, these are the most escape-prone prisoners in America. We had 14 escape attempts involving 36 men. Of those 36 men, 23 were recaptured, 6 were shot and killed, 2 drowned, and 5 were unaccounted for. The 5 unaccounted for included 2 men who escaped from a building on the north end of the island in 1937. They broke the windows, broke the bars, broke a fence, got down into the water, and almost immediately drowned. But the only people who saw them were other prisoners, because prisoners don't talk. Snitches get stitches. So the guards had to keep looking for these prisoners. They didn't know they were dead. The prisoners knew, but they weren't going to kill people. The other 3 unaccounted for are the ones that were the basis for the movie Escape from Alcatraz. You'll see the actual cells inside.
Para que vean la película El escape de Alcatraz. Así les da toda la información de cómo sucedieron las cosas.
This was big news internationally. For a while, you couldn't stop getting reports. I saw 3 men together. It must be the Anglin brothers and Frank Morris. It would be like, you 3 guys, Anglin brothers. No, you 3 over there, Anglin brothers. No, you 3, Anglin brothers. The FBI had to investigate every one of these reports. The escape file is this thick, and it's all nonsense. It's like, there was virtually nothing like the Anglin brothers. The warden got a postcard in the mail that said, "Ha ha, we made it." Signed Frank, John, and Clarence. The FBI looked at it and said, "Well, it's not them, but it's you." The best guess we have today, we've done current studies, if they left before midnight, the current was flowing out from here to the Golden Gate. They were trying to get to Angel Island. The current would have been
Ese es el Angel Island.
Golden Gate out to the ocean.
Esa que está ahí es la Angel Island. Dice que por ahí también se intentaban escapar o iban hacia el Golden Gate. Frank, John y Clarence los están buscando. Son los que se escaparon. Todavía no saben ni supieron nada de ellos.
So I mentioned we didn't know what clean air or clean water were back then. Back then, that smokestack would have been spewing black smoke. They were burning bunker fuel to power the electrical generator for the island. Oh, you see the boat out there in the middle of the bay? That's called the Solitary. That's the boat that brings us water and takes off sewage. That's how we do it today. Back then, they didn't take off sewage. They just had a pipe to the ocean. Military era and in the Army era, they were running a laundry here. Like, the obvious place for a laundry is the desert island in the middle of the bay. Because who needs water for a laundry? They brought over 130,000 gallons 3 times a week just to keep the laundry running. So we didn't really worry about water for the rest of the stuff. The laundry was the main use. You know, water tower was done during the native occupation starting in 1969. By the 50th anniversary in 2019, that had badly faded. So the National Park Service invited back the original occupiers and their descendants to carefully repaint what was there before. Now they to finish that.
Roadrunner.
You want to recharge?
Esa bien puede caminar, no sea atado.
Para los que no pueden caminar.
You know what a morgue is? It's when you look at it as backup power generator. If we call this the backup power generator,
Esta viene siendo la morgue. Aquí es a donde estaba la morgue de los presos.
La mesa de pañuelos. Pero nomás esa mesa que está ahí nomás no lo usan.
Just remember that, and then because we're actually trying to get to the We're going in the prison itself.
Nos vamos acercando a donde estaban encerrados los prisioneros.
Y ahí hay que agarrar
Vamos entrando a la prisión.